you doing, everyone? Me, I've been better, but I've also been worse. Came home, used all my pent up, oh my god, what are we gonna do, energy to clean the kitchen, and ended up with, you know, like, oh yeah, and I've got further steps to do to prepare for next weekend's convention, so I'm gonna do that. I had this crazy idea of blowing this black sand into the cracks and then spraying the Mod Podge paint over it, and then that'll give some grit to the cracks. In a good way or a bad way? I don't know. This is kind of an experimental piece regardless. I mean, you're just gonna see it either moving past the camera quickly or kind of probably out of focus in the background. I'll get to that. Right now I want to do some touch up on my banner. Got this here banner, ordered it a week or so ago, and I like how it came out. It had this sewn border around everything. I didn't really want that. I wanted it to kind of have an oldie-fashioned, you know, like, been flapping in the wind over my castle for a decade or whatever, so been making the edge kind of raggedy, and then I'm gonna throw some paint over it, or some glue, just to make the edges so they're not gonna unravel forever or what have you. And then also just on the back, because it's kind of cheesy how it goes to obviously plain white nylon on the back. Not a fan of that, so I think I'm just gonna paint the back and the sides a bit. That should be pretty fast, right? I'm not sure. I might use Mod Podge if I don't have black fabric paint that's not puffy. I might have black fabric paint that's puffy paint. Airbrush color, but it's not. Wait, is this? I don't know if this is made for fabric. Oh, 4 permanents on fabric. Blah blah blah. You're supposed to iron it after you spray it on, but I think it'll work fine since it's not a wearable thing that we're washing. Okay, that's good. Biggish brush that I don't care a ton about. That looks good. Since I'm painting this thing black anyway, I figure now's a good time to have a working table for this, right? Oh man, looks like it soaks through instantly. Good to know. I definitely don't want to get it on the lighter areas. I wonder if I want to do this more as a dabbed thing. because it's gonna, you know, I've got these kind of worn through, crack looking things, so I don't want just my blobs of paint blocking it. I want it to kind of grungily work into there. Should just airbrush it really, but then I'd have to get my airbrush out and my compressor, which weighs like literally probably 60 pounds, and it's buried under a whole bunch of materials right now. Not sure what to do about the part that tears through the non-black area. I'm just going to try to subtly darken behind it. I want to clean up this edge a little bit. I think if I'm going to do little holes like this, I want them to be in where there's a black line already. This is one of those things where I just put way more effort into it than is warranted. No one's going to notice. But I'll notice. Oh yes, I will notice. Getting little bits of black on here, I think from it folding over. Oh, and laying it over. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't lay it over wet paint, should I? Duh. Hey Phoenix Arts, how you doing? How's your broken fishy doing? Still trying to figure out how to remove the great stuff runoff without ruining the paint. Yeah, that stuff can get away from you real fast, can't it? I think I shall try to hang this somewhere. Yeah. Got enough coverage. Alright. Now let's get some serious painting done. Serious. Which I'm going to try to accomplish with a spray. Not spray paint. A spray bottle. Don't worry, you guys. No, you're not supposed to spray paint on foam? Extruded foam? Is that what we're calling this? Is that what the kids call it these days? Yeah, when it expands out of control and you're not ready for it and you're just panicking, I've had several of those experiences. I built an entire mountain, a 6-foot tall mountain, out of it once. It was for our 7th anniversary for when I was married to my ex-wife. It had like 7 waterfalls going down in and a fountain, but The fountain, let's see, the first one I installed it, I did a test run before I did all the arting over it, right? I just had it like plywood and metal pans to see how the water would cascade down and everything. It worked great. And then I did the arting and it broke. So I had to tear it all out, which, because I was a noob and not that I don't still make these mistakes frequently enough, I didn't make it really accessible, so I had to tear out a bunch of art and resurface around it. Got a new pump in there, and when I turned it on, it like shot out the top like a volcano. Yeah, it's not good. Maybe that's why the marriage didn't last. I don't know. Okay, let's see if this will actually spray. Foamageddon, yeah, that's a good word for it. Set on. So. Does it have enough suction to actually pull out this viscous paint? It did before, but it's also extremely cold in here, so I wouldn't be surprised if that will like viscous it up too much. You know, what I should do is just test it real quick and make sure it works with just water. Yeah, looks like it's just backflowing. Really should have tested it first. Oh, you started reading the book? How far did you get? Chapter 8, oh wow. You're making good timing. That's good, because I really wanted to get it to the editor like within a week, so the more feedback you can provide before that week is up. Okay, now I have confirmed there's nothing actually blocking this straw. Don't know if there's an easy way to see if there's anything blocking this. What happens if I blow air into it besides shooting black paint everywhere? Try blowing through this, but I don't think I could get my lips around it. Oh man, that's what she said. I'll try anyway. Nothing. Okay, so this head may be clogged. Therefore, let us try this one. I think this just has water in it right now. Ooh, that's a lot thinner. Let me see if I have a thicker one. Do. Well, I have a different one. Is it thicker? Yes. It is very thick. Ooh, it's even got like a filter in the bottom there. I don't think I want it to be filtered. Okay. Can I just pop it into this guy? I should just throw this one away. Oh, like a dummy, I didn't first test it in water. Oh, I'm a dummy dumb. Hey, there we go. Nice. Okay. So, can I go? I feel like if I propped it up, I'd be able to do this a little better. And then, so when there's little deep crevices, I could just boom straight in there. See if it starts in the cracks, that's the ideal. It's kind of hard to aim. Probably get better with practice. This particular paint is it's like 90% Mod Podge, matte Mod Podge, and about 10% paint tint. So went to the hardware store and asked them if I could get the tint that they put in the latex paint without the latex paint. And after a lot of confused looks and talking to managers and stuff, they figured out a way to do it. Because the way it's set up, like, you know, they ring up the purchase. Okay, you ordered this color paint. They put the default, you know, I think it's just like a white latex paint up to the nozzle, and then it shoots out the right mix of tint. And so they don't really have a mechanism for selling just the tint. I was like, if I just buy this little bucket here and pay you for a gallon of paint, can't you just not give me the gallon of paint and shoot the tint into a bucket? And so it was still like quite a procedure. Like I was asking for the moon. But the reason I didn't want to mix it with just black paint is because then you're lowering the properties of the Mod Podge, and the properties of the Mod Podge is a tough, you know, tougher than paint finish that will make it less likely to get damaged. Which in general, it's nice to have for your art. You know all about damaged art, don't you? Yeah, isn't it funny, like, the time we spend in hardware stores just looking for random weird things, and like, how many... It's always funny to get the completely non-creative employee and be like, can you help me brainstorm? I'm trying to come up with like a material that will bend 90 degrees. I don't really care what the finish is or what material it is, except it needs to be light and whatever is cheapest. And they're like, what are you even talking about? Are you doing a plumbing project or a deck? No, I'm building a photography background for my 4-foot tall Colossus. You know, as you do. But I have run across some employees there that are like, have been super helpful and actually pointed me in really interesting directions I would not have thought of. So, you never know what you're going to get at the old hardware store. So you mostly do jewelry, right? What kind of other media are you mixing for your mixed media? Starting to recognize you at the Ace hardware store, and like they all hide behind the hide in the next aisle over. Oh god, she's coming my way, isn't she? What's she gonna ask for next? Maybe I need a longer brush to get into these thinner cracks. Maybe something along these lines. Yeah, this is better. A little softer and bendier, so we can get in those awkward spaces. Oh, pinstriping, right. Took a couple of altered book and mixed media classes last year and started incorporating it into some painting work you do. Do you ever do conventions, like buy a booth at a convention for art or pinstriping or whatever? Or art fairs? I'm getting ready to do my first one next weekend. I wouldn't say I'm nervous about it, but I guess just stressed. But I like this one is a really small one, so it's like I consider it a dress rehearsal for the big one I'm doing at the end of April. You've done car shows? Yeah. The one I'm doing this weekend is called, sorry, not this weekend, but a week from tomorrow morning. It's called Nerd Fair. It's just a little one. It's brand new. This is its first year it's going. It's about 30 miles north of me. The bigger one I'm doing end of April is NorwestCon, and that's like the biggest, like, just trying to think of how it's different than like Emerald City Comic Con and Penny Arcade. Well, Penny Arcade is focused on video games, so they'd have other stuff too. Comic Con is just kind of geek culture in general. NorwestCon is like, it's more like the nerds of the nerds. Maybe it's the more booky nerds and less movie nerds. I don't know. I've been having my stuff at their art show for like 14 or 15 years, so this is the first year I'm actually going to have a booth and trying to sell things, trying to sell my book. Which looks like I'm going to need it, because looks like I'm not going to have a job next week. Or, well, chances are high I will not have a job next week. Yeah, WonderCon until LA stole it. Oh man, LA stole WonderCon from you? I haven't even heard of WonderCon. Been to LA for conventions, but it's always been E3, and that was just for work. Oh, I forgot I was going to do a light sanding over part of this. I'll do that before I paint the next section. Yeah, it's pretty common to be going through the old layoff cycle these days. I've worked at 5 game companies in my life, and I've never quit one of them. This last one, though, lasted 15 years. That's really impressive in the game industry. Hey, Big White Shogun, how's it going? Making a backdrop ground for photographing and videoing my Colossus. Just putting out a base coat right now. It says, I have to confess, Mr. Josh, I was bad and busy boy, wasn't able to spend much time on reading last week. Try to finish book 1 this upcoming week. It'll be awesome, man. You know what? You got a life and you gotta live it. I would not say that's bad. I obviously appreciate your feedback greatly, so I'm happy for whatever I can get of it. I made so many changes based on what you said. I feel it's definitely stronger as a result, so. Oh yeah, look at that. I can just put the nozzle right at the crack. That helps me aim. Well, sort of. If you manage to get a free morning or something, you can read a lot. Yeah. Freedom, it's hard to find. Just saying, there's going to be a good chance I'm going to have a lot of free time coming up soon, so it is both terrifying and exciting. Got 2 ongoing projects right now, both indie, but I hope they'll help me get my dead-end... Oh, get away from your dead-end job. Yeah. That'd be nice, huh? Being able to do what you're passionate about for a living? It's the best, man. The best. You gotta give it your all to get there. Need to make the most of my sick leave since my girlfriend just lost her job 2 days ago. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, my wife lost her job more or less. Like, she lost her ability to work because of her disease about a year ago. So we lost her income. And then our car died. We had to get a new car, so now we have a payment. And then I just found out yesterday that I'm probably losing my job tomorrow, or on Monday. Sometime next week is when they give us the final list of the layoffs. So I'm sweating bullets. Yeah, that is some comfort if you lose a job you hate. Kind of makes me wish I hated my job. Then I could take some solace in this. Oh, woe is me. I don't hate my job. Poor me. Freaking crazy if they're gonna cut you loose, man. You are the developer in the eyes of many, and you made some of the best content this game has seen, honestly. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared you may be on the list. Just didn't want to believe it. Thanks, man, I appreciate it. I did make a lot of fun stuff. I'll give myself that pat on the back. Yeah, we don't, no one knows who's on the list except for, well, not even the people putting the list together know. That, you know, the idea was find out who is going to volunteer to leave before the final list is completed, because, you know, the worst thing obviously would be to let someone go who desperately wants to stay while keeping someone who's just like, I'll wait around till I get a better offer, you know. So they're trying to minimize that, so it's understandable. It's just keeping us all on our toes, that's for sure. Not gonna be a very relaxing weekend. Yeah, I got started on writing up my resume. I haven't worked on a resume in 15 years, so I don't even remember how to do it, but that's a good reminder that I should note the popularity of a lot of my content that I made. I don't know how to quantify it, though. I did post on my blog shortly after Super Adventure Box came out, like a giant, just all the fan letters that I got for that. So I guess I do have those. So that's kind of weird to have on a resume. Yeah, I don't even know what to do for a resume. Gotta do some research. That's for sure. I mean, who knows? Maybe Monday will come around and I'll be on the safe list and I won't have to worry about it. Not that I'll be happy about that, because I'll be thinking of all the people that I love and admire who are being let go. Phoenix Art says, I'm not a gamer, but I love the art that goes into them. I'm going to ask a dumb question. Where do you work? It's called ArenaNet. I'm sure you've heard of World of Warcraft, right? We make a game that's kind of like that, a massive multiplayer online game, where a bunch of people get together in a fantasy environment, run around and slay monsters, and in some cases play retro 8-bit games inside the game that I designed. Shogun says, we knew anyway you guys were making something else. We noticed, like, after episode 2 of Living World Season 3, you vanished from the public eye. Yeah, I mean, you know, as a company, you can't, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, so, I mean, I obviously can't talk about anything besides Guild Wars, but that's what companies do. That's not, shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Why couldn't we have X-Pac 3? You know, that'd be nice. I agree with that. I'll sign that petition. I'm gonna see. I don't think it'll work very well to add sand while I'm putting this in, but I just I'm gonna see if I can get away with it. Where was that big crack? Because then when you paint it, well, I guess when you paint it, it does end up smushing mostly into the cracks. A little pebble here or there stays on the surface, which seems totally fine. Oh, you guys can't even see what I'm talking about. Sorry about that. I'm adding sand to places where it seems like the cracks are uneven or too deep or whatever. I'm trying to cover up all the places where you can see the blue foam at all. Yeah, Guild Wars is the name of the game. Well, Guild Wars 2. Although I've worked on Guild Wars, all the Guild Wars 1s as well. Guild Wars 1 and all the... Were they officially expansion? They weren't... I mean, I can't remember what we called them. They were like standalone games, just Guild Wars 1 games. Yeah, there were like 3 of those, and then like an expansion, and then Guild Wars 2. And then things that went horribly wrong. Turns out making games is hard. Called them campaigns. Yeah, that sounds right. Just what pisses me off, they treated like Poleshniel secret? Is that Polish? Everyone knew, but they kept pretending it's not true. On the other hand, looking at the community and their reaction to a freaking mount in World v. World, I can't blame them. Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues with making games and how you communicate what you're doing with them, and certain sensitivities that get developed about things, both internally and externally. There's no right balance, I don't believe. There's just different shades of worse. Like if I ran a game studio, I would want to be 100% transparent with every single thing I was doing at all times. And then my community team, my lawyer, anyone who has to deal with the money would all tell me I need to stop because I'm making their lives a living hell. And it's just because I don't think from that perspective. Doesn't make them wrong and me right. Just means my perspective is limited. So let's see. Secret of Poleshniel. What is this? This isn't that. From the play Pierre Wolf. A supposed secret known to everyone. Okay, good to know. Thanks for that reference. Learn something new every day. Phoenix Art says you almost need to mix some of the sand in with the Mod Podge tint concoction and put it in a big syringe for the cracks. Huh. That's an idea. Let me see if any of the syringes I have will handle that. Some sand. So there was some water in this cup, so it's already watered down, probably 10 or 20%. I'm getting something in there. no guarantee I'm getting the sand particles, but that is nice for applying right to problem areas, though. A lot more precise. Used to play a lot of D&D in college. Nice. No, this is, I just need to make a larger floor for my Colossus to stand on to get some really nice photos and video of him. Because he's just so huge, like... I had some friends over and we tried photographing him in a variety of ways, you know, with like a black sheet behind it, or, you know, I had it in the studio at ArenaNet and we tried it with like a cool painting in the background, but yeah, I just couldn't really find anything that worked really well, so I decided I'm just gonna build like a half of a room, more or less, for him to stand in. The Dark Ages, before computer games. There was such a time. Because I grew up in a evangelical Christian home, my parents were nowhere near what all the other kids in church's parents were like, where they thought anything that was even fantasy was like satanic, right? But my parents still weren't excited about the idea of a game where you cast magic spells and could summon demons and stuff. So, but because this is something that evangelical Christians like to do, they make copies of everything that's out there in the real world, and they make a Christian version of it. So, I had a Christian version of Dungeons and Dragons called Dragon Raid, and they had it set up like it was a metaphor for spiritual warfare. And so your stats, instead of like strength, charisma, agility, all that stuff, instead it was the fruit of the spirit, which it's a list in one of Paul's books, and it's like love, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, gentleness, etc. Hey, Setrevi, subscribe with Twitch Prime. Hey, thank you so much. The more of that I can get, the better. In case you didn't know, it's super helpful to us creators when you do that. You grew up in a fairly heathen household? Yeah. Well, what's funny was, like, my parents are both just ridiculously super smart. And they're both nerds. Like, they love sci-fi and fantasy. So, like, the consummate sci-fi fantasy that is blessed by Christendom is, of course, Tolkien, because he was a, devout Catholic. So, Lord of the Rings, we got a lot of that, and C.S. Lewis's Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Well, Chronicles of Narnia in general. The Wizard of Oz, read a lot of that. So are you, let's see, Satyr7? Is that how you say your name? Not Satterv. Nice. Are you someone I know IRL or virtually from another platform, or do you just stumble across me randomly on Twitch? I often embarrassingly am introducing myself and stuff to people who sub, and they're like, I sit 2 seats down from you at work. I'm like, oh yeah. Jonathan Preshaw. Okay, nice. Thank you, good sir. Thank you. On he's a guest on one of my favorite podcasts. Or are you a full member? I don't know. You're not on there often enough. You feel like a guest to me, like you guest star. And that's assuming that I remember that you're the right Jonathan. Recurring regular guest Esquire. Excellent. Yes. Mythcreants. Did I not say the name of the podcast? Super good. Super great articles on writing on their website as well. Anyone who's interested in writing, check them out. I wish I could afford to pay them to do a what is it called? I guess consulting pass on my book. But alas, both my parents and I have completely run out of money. Content editing? That sounds right. Yeah, I tried listening to their podcast, probably because of you, a link of yours, I don't know, a year or so ago, and I just found them intolerably smug sounding. Not sure why. Then I gave them another go and fell in love with them, so you know how that goes. Sometimes you need to give things a second chance. It's a weird sub-editing, mostly for addressing problematic blind spots. Yes. So fortunately, I got friends at work who did a lot of that. So I feel good, like they caught some good stuff. And I'm really glad they did. Did they catch everything? Probably not. But we made a valiant effort. Like, I've worked so hard to beg and plead and cajole and convince, and sometimes when I have to pay people to do sensitivity reads and yeah, just that general kind of thing, like getting other perspectives than my extremely privileged one. That being said, I'm sure in 20 years people will still look back at it and be like, whoa, that first series really problematic. Assuming we continue on this trajectory and don't take a hard right swing as a culture. Big backlash. Yeah, I'm glad you bugged me to try them again. Working to catch it puts you ahead of the curve, so great job on that front. Yeah, all our fingers are crossed, that's for sure. Yeah, the biggest concern we were trying to deal with, like, the book was written, you know, the first draft was written probably 10 years ago, back when cultural appropriation was, like, known by 10 professors in the world. And so, when I first heard about it, I was like, huh, I wonder, is our book guilty of this? And then I went on a quest to try to find an actual definition of what that could actually be. Boy, was that a rabbit hole. I wrote a very long blog about it. Yeah, it's very complicated. And my blog was not, here is the definition. I figured it out, you guys. I did it. Here's what you can and can't do. I found the rules. It was more just like open-ended questions that I could direct anyone to who would please help me answer it. You know, I was talking to any of my POC friends who, you know, had any knowledge of writing or that whole kind of arena. Because our book is weird in that it's like, it's fantasy but not really. It's set on a different planet but with humans from our near future who are then in a distant, somewhat post-apocalyptic future. And all the people are genetically engineered, so there are no races that, you know, modern races that we have today. But there's a limited palette of colors for skin and hair, right? So it's like, they will still be perceived and coded by readers and hopefully someday viewers, etc., you know, as certain races. And so then it's like, oh wow, so our main character would probably be coded as African, Jamaican, Polynesian. It's kind of a mix of all those things. And you know, there's all this uproar now about, well, tell your own stories. Let the people who have lived the experiences of, you know, those racial identities tell their own stories. Stop, you know, all you privileged white people who just decide you're gonna, you know, write a story about a little African girl, just don't. And then, yeah, I went on a quest to find, okay, well, how far does that extend? Because if you follow that logic and keep following it, and I was, you know, what is the countervailing balance to that? And I was not able to find one. And if you, because if you keep going, then literally the only thing that we could write sensitively would be autobiographies. Which I thought, okay, that sounds like a straw man argument to me that, you know, right-wing people are going to say because they're mad about, you know, anything that liberals say. And they're going to make up dumb arguments. But, yeah, I couldn't find anywhere articulated what the countervailing power to that logic flow is. Red dreads was an interesting concept. Yep, pretty much So the idea is that the various human genetic variants that were created, they were created specifically to be able to thrive in different environments. Because the humans were hedging their bets as they were nearing this planet. They're like, we don't know who's going to live, who's going to die, whatever. And so they kind of split up into these different regional flavors. And so we've got the Beaumark's people are made for the Sun Belt. So they've got like semi-reflective skin and red dreadlocks, because why not? Yeah, it sounds like a slippery slope fallacy, right? Well, if you go that far, it just keeps going and going and going. But all my people of color friends that I spoke to about it, you know, who are willing to have this really long, obnoxious conversation with me about it, we're all like, you know what, man, like, if you're looking for it and you care about it, you know, you're not gonna be blindly doing stupid things. You know, the stupid kind of gut biases and heuristics that people apply when they write their stories. If you're thinking about it while you're doing it, it's very unlikely you're going to make a giant blunder. I'm not convinced they're right about that. I feel like I could still make a giant blunder without realizing it. Some people go out of their way to find things to be offended by. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the annoying thing. Like, that is the straw man argument that conservatives make all the time against liberals. Because there are enough crazy people out there saying crazy things, and then those people, you know, they have video of that, and they aggregate that into a viral video that they send around all their friends and in their little bubble, and then they're convinced that all liberals, you know, anyone who cares about things like cultural appropriation, are, you know, that meme of the screaming college woman or whatever. And it's like, well, you know, there can be subtlety and nuance in these arguments, you guys. Yeah, Big White Shogun. Most of the young men that I know from Europe, France, England, they all think that, kind of like what you're saying, it's like, if you're offended, it's your own problem, right? I've been convinced otherwise. Not that, like everything, it can obviously be taken too far. And if you are priming yourself to always be offended by things, yes. But I don't think that's the case in most situations. I think there's a danger in saying it's always your problem if you're offended, and that if there are systemic injustices, right, unfairness, telling someone to stop being offended just because you don't perceive why it would upset them, that's just not loving. That's the way I look at it. A loving thing to do is try to empathize and see things from another person's perspective. That's what I would like to encourage with my work, and the motto of my studio is make the world more loving with stories. I don't know how to do that yet exactly, but it's the goal. It's good to have a goal. Yeah, Phoenix Art, I figure... I mean, a long time ago, I was like... When I didn't have a grand scheme for my life, I was like, what do I want to leave behind? Is it just like, he worked in the game industry for 30 years and then died, and he made some games people had fun with? It's like, you know what? I think I could do more than that. I think I could do something that could leave the world better than when I came into it. Or rather, I think that I could try to do that. Who knows if I mean, who knows if my strategy is right or wrong, but, you know, I'm trying. I'm trying. White Shogun says, Mr. Josh, please don't take me wrong, but I'm all about being equal and fair, and I honestly believe in equal rights for everyone, but what I see lately is mostly fight for privileges and forcing someone's beliefs on me, and that's not right in my books. Yeah, I prefer to convince people rather than force people. On the other hand, you have to consider, like, what if the people that are screaming and complaining about their rights being violated, what if that's true, right? And you're resisting it because you don't want it to be forced to do something. And the people screaming about their rights being violated, they may be right, they may be wrong, I don't know. But I think it's important to not dismiss them out of hand because they don't, you know, because you don't immediately understand it or it's not intuitive to you. That's all I would push for. Which is easy for me because I have all the privilege and I'm not suffering under those systemic injustices that many people suffer under. Phoenix Arch says, okay, gonna log out and log back into my computer. Too tiny in the iPad. Oh, good point. Not that what I'm doing is terribly fascinating. Pretty much just trying to get black squeezed into all the cracks. That's all it is. Blackinthecracks.com. Oh, no, don't go there. Don't go there. I'm sure that's not a good place. Shogun says, I never had problems with gay people or black people or anyone. I strongly believe that if you love something that makes you more happy, you should go for it, and no one has the right to stop you as long as your way to your happiness doesn't have a negative effect on the happiness of others. This is what I truly believe, and I never just assume someone is oppressed because they are making something about it. Fair enough. There's this pushback effect. I don't know if it's in Europe the same way it is in America, but American conservatives, like, just even being told, hey, what you're doing might be hurtful to some people in some ways, and they're like, you can't tell me what to do, you're trying to force your blah blah blah, you know. And it's like, to me, it's like that would be if you were stepping on someone's foot. You know, you're in line at the grocery store, and they're like, excuse me, you're stepping on my foot. And you're like, don't even look down, and you just start yelling at them for accusing you. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I perceive a lot of the like anger towards being told, hey, there are actually power dynamics at play in the world that some people benefit from and other people suffer from. It's just a systems design issue. It's not, you don't have to take it personally, right? It's just, Reanate82 said you missed a spot. Oh no! Can't not have missed a spot. Oh, can you tell what I'm working on now, Phoenix? Yeah, I'm working on tiles. So you tell me when I miss spots. Shogun says that's how I perceive both sides. Oh, absolutely. You can find people on both sides screaming at each other irrationally. That is for darn sure. And it's never been easier to find those people now because there are whole websites and news services dedicated to making sure you see the stuff that outrages you the most. It's that's what feeds the algorithms, gives them power. If you're mad, they're making money. Turns out it's not very hard to make humans mad. You just gotta find another human with someone who says the opposite thing. It's amazing how that works. Some big old brush strokes in here. I gotta wipe them all away. Phoenix Art says, I think for me, extremism on any topic is a huge turnoff. Yeah, I agree. But then, again, that can be taken too far if you're like, oh, the middle is always right. You know, all you have to do is imagine, you know, people living in Germany in the late 30s. You know, if you just and going into the early 40s, are they always saying, you know what, we should be moderate about this whole locking the Jews up thing? And that's clearly not what's happening right now, but it does show that there is a limit to that argument. Big White says, the far left side and the far right side both equally dumb and make more to people who just want to live their lives in peace. Yeah, I want to live my life in peace, but I really want to be careful, and like, if I'm actually hurting people without realizing it, I want to know that. You know, that's exciting to me, because I feel like, oh, I have a chance to learn something about myself and other people and how my interactions are affecting others. Like, that's kind of the basis of love to me, and that's, I don't know, that's kind of my central focus is learning to be a more loving person and hopefully inspire those around me to be more loving. I think that is the highest thing a human can strive for. Oh, harm. That makes more sense than hum. Reonate82 says, I'm actually stoked I managed to catch one of your streams. You usually stream when I'm at work. Oh, cool. Glad you can make it. Welcome. You know, I don't purposely try to stream when you're at work. I don't wait there, and as soon as you get into work, I'm like, okay, time to stream. Just for the record, so you know it's nothing personal. Thrashrama says, neat, is this for D&D? You know, it totally could be. I'll probably loan it to someone when I'm done with it. I'm making it as a floor for a Colossus that I sculpted. It's like 4 feet tall from Shadow of the Colossus. And in order to photograph it well, I need a much larger floor for it to stand on. It's on a base about this big already, but I'm basically expanding the floor in several feet in every direction. Although I don't, what are standard game measurement units? Like when you do tiles, aren't they usually 1 inch by 1 inch or like 2 by 2 or something? Because these are awkwardly 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch. Yeah, it's foam core. There'll always be exceptions. The key is just not to make them a routine. Yep. Certainly, like, trying to make everyone panic over things, when panic actually does more harm than good, that is a thing that happens on the extremes, for sure. But it's easy to panic when you perceive the other side as like actually morally monstrous, right? And that's what the internet is specializing at right now, is making the other side look like monsters. And it makes it so you don't want to just sit down and listen to people. And then it makes it when, you know, in the rare cases where people are interested in listening to others, the chances of both sides having a reciprocal conversation with give and take and actual listening is so rare that, yeah, it's rough times right now. I really hope we figure out a way to manage the internet that isn't terrible. Reonate82 says, lol, well, I'm Damon's friend from New Zealand. It's 8:11 here at the moment. 8:11 p.m. Oh, okay, nice. Must be 2 a.m. over there? No, it's only 11 p.m. here. Nice to meet you. Damon is one of my greatest supporters and patrons. He's a super cool guy. Past your bedtime at 8:11? Wow, you must have to get up early. I'm lucky if I get to bed before like 3 or 4 a.m. on a weekend. Shogun says, I think we are both talking about different stuff. Things I have a problem with is when someone comes to you and tells you you are racist because, I don't know, all your workers are one color, and there's not enough diversity. I mean, I'm not going to employ someone based on color of their skin or content of their crotch, but by their qualification. I found it being fair. You worked for something really hard. It shouldn't matter what color is your skin. Yes, in an ideal world. And I believe that attitude that you have is fantastic. The only caveat is when there are systemic issues that are out of your hands as an employer and out of their hands as a potential candidate, such as, you know, statistically, if you grow up poor or malnourished, your IQ is going to be whatever % lower. If you have a bad school system, your chances are lower. If you have a single parent, so you have all these issues that exist systemically, as they say, that tend to impact minority races more because they're less integrated into the culture, integrated and accepted. I mean, you know about this, right? My understanding is Polish people in England are not well received at this point right now. And you could blame them or like the ones of them that cause the perception that they're all bad. Oh, not true, honestly? Okay. Thanks for correcting that. I heard... Who did I hear it from? I heard from someone that Polish people were kind of considered, in the same way in the U.S., where we're upset about all the Mexicans coming in, you know what I mean? Like, they're invading our country. They're changing our culture. They won't speak our language. I heard it somewhere, but I'm glad to hear an opposing view to that. But regardless, it does happen to some people sometimes. In some, in every culture there are minorities, right? And immigrants, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're saying, well, we take each person on a case-by-case basis, but it turns out you end up just getting a bunch of white dudes, and the white dudes have all the qualifications because of all the privileges, being born in the right place, having the right education, having the two parents in their family, etc., 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 right? Just statistically, we're not talking about any individuals here. Statistically, you're going to end up with more white people and fewer brown people. And, you know, if you were in a country that was mostly brown people and had a few white people who were, you know, generally poor and didn't get the same education, nutrition, loans for businesses and houses, etc., it would be reversed. It's just human nature. At least as far as I can tell. I would never try to jam my beliefs down anyone's throat, because I don't even know that I'm right. It's just what I'm currently convinced of after the things that I've read and seen. But like you pointed out, hey, maybe a lot of things I've read and seen are just wrong. Everyone says so, that Polish are treated badly or whatever. It's just the media. I mean, you'll always find people being nationalists and stuff. Phoenix Art says, okay, my brain just went on a journey and started to wonder if the tint affected the smell of the Mod Podge at all. Let's see. Smells just like Mod Podge to me. But it's only about 10% tint, so if it did affect it, it would probably be unnoticeable. I think if you did a smell test, you know, where you lined people up, I'll bet most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Kind of find that smell therapeutic, which is odd. And again, love the smell of WD-40. Oh yeah, that's not uncommon. Some people like the smell of gasoline. My wife loves the smell of primer, like spray primer. Lucky for her, I use a lot of spray primer. That should really just be my cologne. Racing fuel. Shogun says, Mr. Josh, I was born in poverty in a small village in a post-communistic country. I was one of 5 kids in our family. My grandpa was an alcoholic and convicted criminal. Told you how I was being picked on at school, bullied, and treated badly, and I only spoke one of the most difficult and weird languages in the world. That is different from English in almost every aspect. Heck yeah, man. That's a hard knock life. I gotta say, I'm super impressed by you, by your intelligence, by how articulate you are. And, yeah, given what you had to overcome, very impressive. Like, you'd be impressive even if you didn't overcome all that. But the fact that you did makes you triply impressive to me. Never moaned or asked anyone about anything, just worked hard to get where I am today. Yep. That's awesome. And that is the personality profile of some people. Rare numbers of people. Renate82 says, I can't remember the smell of WD-40, but nail polish remover my ex-girlfriends would use, or those high alcohol hand cleaners. I love the smell of those. Oh, weird. Big White says, and I believe strongly I could do even more. Dunno, maybe it's just me. I had some weakness moments. weakness moments in my life, as I told you before, but somehow I managed to make it even though I didn't have the best start. Oh, I don't know why AutoMod decided that Phoenix Art's comment was bad, but there you go. You're allowed to talk to each other. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, Shogun has an awesome life story. I have a friend from Russia who, you know, had also grew up in, you know, communist, collapsing communism. Let's see, this would have been the late 80s, early 90s, and his mom got him over to the US, him and his sister, and then like a year or less after they got over here, they got in a car crash and she died. His mom died. And so he was adopted, and his sister was adopted by a different family. I have no idea why they split them up. But, yeah, and he's also a super amazing, like, really grounded, awesome guy that I love. I don't know, maybe something about growing up dirt poor in communism just makes you awesome. Maybe we should implement communism over here so we can get more awesome people. Josh Foreman for president. Well, see, here's the thing, White Shogun. Growing up in the U.S., there's a lot of us whose story... I mean, you've seen U.S. sitcoms, right? Where it's just like the happy family in the suburb house, and like the big problem is, my boyfriend stood me up for my date, or, you know, or we're gonna have a bake sale for the swim team, you know, like... That seriously is a lot of people's lives in the U.S., so your story's definitely interesting compared to that. Just don't build the walls. Don't you have to build walls if you're a communist country? I thought that was one of the rules. Midway through the first season of Malcolm in the Middle. Oh man, that's one of my favorite shows. My son was actually just watching through that series earlier this week. Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. Phoenix says, you may not think so. I've had some fascinating interviews where others may not have thought they were interesting. That's true. You were born past communism, but still, post-communism seems pretty grim as well. The actress who plays the mom is Polish? That sounds right, yeah. God, I love her character so much. There's an episode, I don't know which season it is, where she gets in a fender bender, and she insists, she gets a ticket for it, and she insists it's the other driver's fault. And I don't want to spoil it. It's like one of the best character episodes ever. She could barely speak Polish because I believe she was the daughter of 2 Polish immigrants. Ah. Come to think of it, she does look a lot like my Polish aunts. I never thought of that. You know what they say, all Polacks look the same. I don't know if anyone says that. I'm sure someone says that. Guilty pleasure has been The Masked Singer. I love everything about the show and the fact that Walter White is the dad. Yeah, that is hilarious. There are... Especially there's like a few, there's some episodes that get kind of dark with him where you're like, oh man, the Walter White's coming out. Look out, guys. So I think I've only seen commercials for The Masked Singer. That is the premise of that contestants have to guess who the famous singer is who's wearing a furry suit? That's what it looks like from the commercials. So what I'm hoping to do after I get this floor done is I'm going to take a picture of it and then get that printed onto either a cloth tablecloth or a vinyl sticker that I can put over the tables at my convention booth so that it'll perfectly like blend into the Colossus base. All the singers are celebs of one kind or another, actor, singer, sports figure, etc., and they get voted off every week. The panel tries to guess based on clues in a video before they perform. Huh, okay. I think this show originated in Korea. Yeah, I'm reading about it now. It doesn't seem like my kind of show. Reality shows are like definitely a certain flavor, especially ones that involve celebrities. I ended up watching a lot of what was that, Dancing with the Stars? Just because Heather had it on a lot. It had some interesting elements to it. I've never really cared about dance or gone out of my way to watch it or anything. But I thought it was interesting in how they tried to inject like narrative and story into it, because that's a big area of interest to me when it comes to video games, is how stories are or let's say narratives are either embedded in the games or tacked in the middle with cutscenes. So I think cutscenes are really unhealthy for the game industry. But it's hard to make an argument against them when we don't have much better options when it comes to narrative in an interactive format. And a lot of it comes down to technological limitations. But anyway, Dancing with the Stars made me think about that a lot, because they don't stop the dance to do a story part, right? Although musicals do. But they still get across a, usually a very simple story, like, oh, here's a person who finds someone and then they get in a fight. Or here's, someone who doesn't like someone at first and then they fall in love. Super rudimentary stuff like that. But it made me think that if games tried to focus more on that kind of story, then they could do it in a more interactive way that's not broken up into cutscenes. Phoenix Art says, normally they aren't for me either, especially singing-based shows. Bad singing hurts my head, but this one has been a lot of fun. Phoenix Art says, doesn't like someone at first, then they fall in love. Story of how my husband and I met. Nice. So you guys met as a romantic comedy? Is that? It's like the plot of every romantic comedy. And Hallmark movie, come to think of it. Or like a teen comedy. I think that's just basically become the formula in the modern age for love stories. I'm guessing it's because it provides the largest character arc. Right, and we humans respond a lot to character growth and arcs now. Didn't used to, until the invention of the novel. Traditional stories about heroes going on quests, the hero never changes. They never grow, they never learn things or change their attitude or behavior. That's started in the maybe the late 1700s. I'm trying to think if like Gulliver's Travels, if he changed at all as a person as a result of his experiences. If I just get 1,000 more patrons, I'd be able to afford a cameraman for all my live streams, and then he could always make sure that what I'm doing is in frame and focused. How great would that be? or if someone just signed up for my $1,000 pledge, $1,000 a month, which I did make, just because it would be hilarious. You never know, and like Bill Gates or Steve Ballmer or Jeff Bezos will stumble across my stream and be like, you know what, I wouldn't mind pitching this guy $1,000 a month. You never know. I need to figure out why my settings are so, what are they, like church grandma? If you lived in Seattle, you'd volunteer? Excellent. I mean, you know, you went on a grand adventure from Poland to England. You might as well keep going and end up in Seattle. That's right, he didn't get caught by the auto mod because he didn't use that filthy, filthy language. You wash your filthy mouth out with soap, young lady. Alright, now I just gotta hunt down all little blue spots I didn't find the first time. Wish me luck. You guys see any? Let me know. Tell me when my finger goes across a spot I missed. I'm just kidding, that would be terrible. Yeah, I think San Francisco is slightly more expensive than Seattle. I don't know which is most expensive between New York and San Francisco. LA is up there too. Also, not gonna lie, I kind of wouldn't want to live in the USA. That's fair. Very understandable. Except maybe Hawaii or Alaska. Yeah, I lived in Alaska for 6 years. Boy, was it cold. Never been to Hawaii yet. Sure would love to go. So many beautiful things to be inspired by there. Phoenix says, I'm in the suburbs, Concord, but the housing prices are ridiculous. Yeah, I'm in the suburbs as well. I mean, I have coworkers who, in order to afford a place, have to drive for like 45 minutes or an hour to get to work. That is not unusual in these kind of super expensive areas. I have a carpool buddy who works at Bungie, which is just a couple miles from ArenaNet. So we get to carpool, and we get a carpool lane, which makes our commute only about 25 minutes. Not bad by these standards. Hi, Demo Rose. How you doing? Is it really rainy all the time in Seattle, or is that just a myth? Mostly myth. I mean, in the winter, sometimes it'll rain like for 5 days in a row, but that's pretty rare. It's usually a day or two or three, a handful of times. Not very often in the summer. I hear it's foggy all the time in San Francisco. Is that true? I used to visit my cousins. They lived on the Army base that used to be right on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge from downtown San Francisco. Back when that was an Army base in the 80s. And so we used to walk across the bridge into San Francisco. Once we walked across it backwards, just because we could. You'd like to visit Seattle? It's really not that different from San Francisco. In fact, it's, come to think of it, it's similar in a lot of ways. Wow. It's like there's a big port, there's a pier you can visit, there's an art museum. It's usually chilly when it's not summer. You gotta go across bridges to get to the suburbs. Shogun says, like news coverage, movies, everything shows USA as this crazy, almost war zone with people dying every day. If you get injured or you get seriously ill, you will probably have to mortgage your house to pay for the treatment. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the big fear I'm running into now with, if I lose my job, what happens to Heather, because she's in the middle of getting all these surgeries that she needs, because she has a disease, a degenerative disease that's just going to get worse over time. And, like, if I don't have medical insurance, there is not a chance in hell we can possibly afford the treatments that she needs. Demo Rose, doing well. Was quite shocked by the announcement. Sending a numeric hug to you and all your coworkers. Thanks, Demo Rose. Shogun says, Even when I watched Malcolm lately, there was a scene where they charged them $400 for a couple of stitches. Yep, that's why you have to have insurance in the US, which means you have to have a job that will subsidize that insurance. And if you don't, you know, you are just SOL if you have any serious medical conditions. It's pretty crazy. As I said, maybe I'm wrong, but this is the picture of USA painted in my head in the last couple years. If, and I say if, I may have advice for you. If what, you may have advice for me? Or are you talking to someone else? I mean, there's a lot of upsides to the US as well. But the healthcare system, well, here's the thing. The healthcare system's incredible. As long as you have insurance. As long as you have good insurance. You know, we have, if not the best, certainly close to the best of almost everything. Because you can make so much money if you're good at whatever it is you do in the medical field up here. So there's a lot of incentive to be the best. Shogun says, if you would lose your job or found yourself in not so interesting financially position, I know few Americans who come here to have private treatment in Poland, for example. You knew about. Don't know them personally. Like people with cancer, they have their chemos and operations done here. Yeah, I've heard of that. I mean, the cost in travel is, I don't know if it would be offset by that or not. One of the problems is, like, she needs a whole lot of surgeries specifically, and they're all like really complicated semi-exploratory surgeries, or they go in and they're like, okay, this tendon's all bound up here and this bone is twisted and the padding between the thumb and the other bone is like disintegrated, and then they have to do all this kind of internal plastic surgery to fix it. And they need to do that all over her body. Like her ankles, her feet, probably her hips at some point, her jaw. Like, she's just clearly one of those, she just has a defective body, right? Like, she would be dead in any time other than modern day. Because it would cost them dozens of thousands of dollars to have it back in the USA. Yup. Phoenix says, I've heard about that. Someone I know told me the procedure they were looking at, it was cheaper to fly up there and stay for a couple months to recover. And the cost of everything here is like $7,000? The disease she has is called and I can never pronounce it. It's EDS, which is something like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder, and there's several different. There's like 12 different strains of it that affect people in different ways, because you have connective tissue all over your, all throughout your body, and it can have different kinds of defects with it. But hers is the kind where basically her tissues don't hold stuff together the way it's supposed to, which means she's constantly compensating for her tissues not holding together by activating the wrong muscles at all the wrong times. So like some muscles are just constantly overstressed and other ones are atrophied, because the human body is like supposed to move in certain ways, and the muscles and tendons and all that is set up to do it a certain way. Yeah, and then also she has heart issues, she has digestive issues, because all of that stuff is connective tissue in there, and when it's not contracting and doing the things it's supposed to do, you run into problems. So I mean, it took 15 years to finally get to this diagnosis, because it was, you ever seen that show House, where a patient comes in and has all these just weird random different problems, and then the whole thing is like, oh, there's this one thing that happens to cause all those things. That's what we finally discovered, because she was going to heart specialists and stomach specialists and back specialists and all these people, and none of their normal treatment was doing anything. And now we know why. It's that her tissue does not respond the way normal body tissue does. Shogun says, compared to what you would have to pay in the US for it, yeah, it'd be much cheaper. House was a fun show. It's a good idea. Sherlock Holmes, but as a doctor. Plus, Hugh Laurie is just amazing. Alright, you guys ready to go on a magic carpet ride? I'm going to use my camera / light to do a final exam, catch any more bugs with my texture. Because I can't afford a QA department, so I gotta be my own. Also need to make sure I'm not leaving any egregious brush strokes. Not happy about that blob that covered over completely, although let me see what happens if I carve into it. Where'd it go? Here it is. Much better. Kind of lost interest after 2 seasons. Yeah, I mean, it kind of became more of the same thing over and over. Shogun says, Let's say fly to Warsaw from Seattle costs around $700, and I'm sure you can get it cheaper if you look properly for it. And cost of living in good conditions would probably be around $500 a month. Yeah, that's crazy. I have a screaming good deal on the house that I live in, because we moved in right after the big housing bubble burst, and we lost our condo in 2008. We moved into this house, and I think our landlord, he had really bad tenants before us, and so he was just really relieved to get like a person with a stable job. Haha, joke's on you now. So he gave us a really good deal, and he didn't raise our rent for several years. But I think property taxes have kept going up, so he really had to, just to not lose money. But yeah, even now, so it's a 3-bedroom house with this garage and a yard and everything, and we're paying $1,725 a month for it. Most other equivalent places around here would probably be closer to like $2,500 a month. Looks like the edge could use more point. Yeah, actually the edges are going to be covered, like about a ½ inch of the edges are going to be covered with another, like a little step up. So not worried about edges right now. Would be about the same there in Concord? Yeah. I honestly don't know what the average earning around here is. It's certainly been going up and up, because this area is the headquarters of Microsoft. Hey, Patchy Sam! Microsoft, Nintendo, you know, Amazon moved up here, Facebook is up here. So we have like huge companies that pay massive salaries. We have a ton of millionaires that live around here. So yeah, I really don't know. I know my friends who hopped around a lot from company to company, which is typically what people do in the game industry. They make, I don't know, maybe 20-30% more than me. So I'm guessing I'm probably somewhere in the middle-ish. Which is probably why I can afford to live, you know, in a middle-ish house. It's not big by any means, and it's old. But it suits our needs perfectly fine. Well, not perfectly fine. If I plug too many things into our outlets, they blow. But other than that, meets our needs fine. Oh, and my bathtub is too shallow. I've got one of those baths where you have to choose. Do you want your legs under the water or your torso? Take your pick. Patchy Shazam, you subscribe? Wow! Thank you, Patchy Shazam. That is awesome, and you have an awesome name. Like, honestly, I'm asking about normal families, people with mundane jobs. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. A mundane job in this specific area is like Microsoft. You're an engineer at Microsoft, and you're probably making between, I'd say, 60 and 200K a year, I'd say. Or, Boeing, that's another giant one that, you know, people who have been there for 20, 30, 40 years, they're making, you know, 100,000 a year or more. If you mean like mundane, like people who work as waiters or something like that, they're still making pretty close to minimum wage, and it's almost impossible to live without a bunch of roommates. We have a lot of houses that are lived in by, you know, many roommates. And they've been building tiny little condos all over the place. Well, I mean, the buildings are big, but the the actual living space is really small. So they're getting more like Europe in that sense. Teeny tiny little flats. Phoenix says, my mortgage is just a bit more than your rent, and that is after refinancing. Phoenix says, we have Silicon Valley out here, which does the same. People living out in Brentwood, used to be the sticks, having to commute to San Francisco every day. That's a 1.5-hour drive without traffic. Oh my gosh. Shogun says, I'm making less than 20,000 pounds a year. Good. My first game industry job, which, I mean, you got to keep in mind, this was the mid-90s. I want to say it was 21,000 a year. Funnily, let's see, in 1997, I lost my second job in the game industry. You know, they just closed down the studio, and so I applied at literally every game studio that existed. There were a lot fewer of them back then. I got an offer from Bethesda to work on, let's see, it would have been Oblivion. No, it was pre-Oblivion. It must have been Daggerfall. And they were offering $14,000 a year to be an animator on that. Couldn't do that. Sorry guys, like, I literally would have made something like 20% more working at McDonald's. Of course, if I would have known that eventually I'd be working on Skyrim, you know, I might have made a different calculation.
You are a disappointment.
I'm a disappointment.
Whole family.
I am?
You didn't make Oblivion. You could have done something, Dad. You
yeah.
could have made it so the poison apples did more. More!
I really let my son down.
Such a failure!
He wasn't even born, and he's still mad at me.
You know what? The sperm in your body was disappointed in you the moment you rejected that job.
Fair. That's a fair criticism. Thank you for offering that fair and balanced critique.
You suck! Love you.
Love you too.
You idiot.
This is what it's like having a 19-year-old.
Don't you start, Dad.
Okay, I won't.
Now none of us have a job.
It's true. None of us have jobs.
Suck it.
We have four adults living in this house, and none of us are employed. It's awesome.
It's great. It's like the perfect bachelor paradise, except I'm the only bachelor. Me and John are the only bachelor, and John can't really be considered a bachelor. He doesn't really do much.
Not very bachelory. That's true.
Maybe playing Battlefield 5 counts as being a bachelor. This is what the bachelor life is like. How much money do you think you would have made, Dad, if you worked on Skyrim now?
Who knows?
A lot. I mean, you should get out. You should have gone out right before Fallout 76.
But then everyone would have been mad at me for Fallout 76.
That's why you need to leave Fallout 76.
I want people to be mad at me for Guild Wars, not for Fallout.
Imagine jumping puzzles inside of Skyrim.
Huh?
They'd be awful.
I would have done it. I would have put jumping puzzles all over Skyrim. It's true.
You would have put Super Adventure Skyrim, okay?
Super Adventure Skyrim?
Yeah. In a pixelated Skyrim. Would have been great. It would be like Daggerfall in Skyrim. You could have made the Dwemer real.
You could have. Shogun says, Western Europe maybe. Houses in Poland. Houses are freaking huge. 2, sometimes 3 floors tall. Wow. It would be either Daggerfall or Morrowind. In 97? Yeah, probably. Tell your son, Josh, you would have also worked on Fallout. Yeah. Yep, we got there. Don't worry. Patchy Shazam says, I love Guild Wars 2. Hey! That's great. That's coincidentally, I love Guild Wars 2 also. What are the chances that 2 people on this stream would love Guild Wars 2? Renate82 says, everyone loves Guild Wars 2, although Josh made the Chalice of Tears. He wants to make you cry. Well, I only want people who are into that sort of thing to cry, to be fair. I really don't want normal people who aren't into crying to cry. Demaro says more than 2. Oh man, I missed more than 2 what? Big White says, I used to love it. Where's my Asura themed X-Pack? Where is it? Yes, I failed so many people. Oh snap, I almost forgot to ask. You like NES game, right? Yeah, I mean NES is my nostalgia system. It's the one I grew up with. My first real console that we owned in our own house. I played, you know, all my cousins' Ataris and televisions and stuff, but the NES was the big one that had the big impact on me. That's why I made these guys over here. Let's see if my camera will stop being mean to me and actually rotate. Alright, there's my little Zelda shrine with all the various characters from the game that I made. Someday I'm going to finish that project. It's going to be so rad. Gonna remake Zelda with my own little sculptures. More than 2 people on the stream love Guild Wars 2. Oh, okay, yeah. That's practically everybody. Well, on Reddit, there's a sub called INAT. I Need a Team. And I found this guy's looking for a pixel artist for his dream project. A NES nostalgia platformer, like classic Capcom games. DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Chip and Dale, and so on. Yeah, I mean, someone did that. It's called Shovel Knight. It's amazing. But, yeah, we could always use more games like Shovel Knight. My problem is, again, getting back to the healthcare thing, I can't do indie projects. I can't do my own, you know, just start my own company and work on that exclusively because I need health insurance. I can't give myself health insurance. Has to be a giant corporation. That's the only people who can afford it. Otherwise, I would quit right now and focus on these books and building up this universe and doing all the development on it and doing all my classes, and oh man, I'd be doing so much cool stuff. Making my own indie games, which I've started every once in a while, but it's like the chances of making money on an indie game is even less than making money on an indie novel. Right, you're playing Guild Wars 2 right now. Awesome. Maybe if you just spend like $50 million on gems, then they won't have to do layoffs. Don't be selfish. Just spend $50,000 million on gems. Crying out loud. Save my job. Shogun says, I figured out I can help them out and make my portfolio larger. I made some mock-ups and wanted to ask you what did you think about them, if that's okay with you. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love giving critiques. Phoenix says, unfortunately that part of our system is still broken. Yep, it is. Renee, are you saying that you don't have $500 million or just that like you're not allowed to spend it? Yes, Big White Shogun, I agree. If you had that money, do your own thing and make an amazing new creative product. And yeah, hire me, assuming you can pay for my health insurance. That's all I care about. You don't have 500 million or even 500. Well, that's a bummer. Even I have 500. Well, for now. We'll see how long that lasts. Ah, what the heck? Is that a... It's a wasp! Why is there a wasp in my studio in February? What are you even doing? Oh man, I wonder if there's a nest up in that spot. Hold on, you guys. I need to make sure there's not... I'm not going to be swarmed by wasps all of a sudden. That would super suck. Let's see. It's probably coming from up there. Where's my flashlight? Oh, I could use this. Alright, guys. You're going to help me look for wasps, okay? So, up the rafters. Alright, you see that little black square-ish hole? Let's see if I can... Yeah. Right? Right there. So that's like a vent that goes out the roof. And I feel like there's been a wasp nest in it before. Man, it is early in the year for them to be flying around, and it's so cold too. Maybe the heat from my my little foot heater is waking them up. Hold on, I'm gonna find a better flashlight. Brake cleaner, is that what I need? Magic Penguin, thanks for voting me Artist of the Month. Oh, that's cool. That looks almost 4-bit instead of 8-bit. Alright, you waspy waspses. Come out if you're up there. I think when I'm done tonight, I'm going to just spray a bunch of garbage up there. See if that helps. And I'll just hope to not be stung in the meantime. How did I get my camera like this? Something's messed up. Oh, went like this. Okay, there we go. Hi. Oh man, look how dusty you are. Check out the sweet pixel art, you guys. Let's see. I need to have a light on it. Here we go. So let's see. All right, what are your what's your tile size that you're dealing with, or are you just simulating tiles, or are you actually using a tile brush? Right now it reminds me of there was a game called it was Hudson's Island Adventure, something like that. I would nix the dark lines around the palm leaves. Like these rock piles. Don't know how I feel about these cloud strata, lines like that. That's not something I remember seeing in NES games, but I could be wrong. This background is definitely cool. It's not super NES. It's more like a 16-bit background than an 8-bit, just as far as like how big it is. Like most 8-bit games, they had to use a bunch of tiles to make the background. Reminds Phoenix Arts of Pitfall. Yeah, a little bit of that too. Never done 8-bit, and to be honest, NES palette is so primeval, it's beyond my understanding of how universe work or used to work. Yep, that was the surreal tour of my workshop, hunting with Josh. Okay, fractals are done. Have a coffee. Oh, my undivided attention. Well, it's just about time for me to be done. So now that you have my attention, now it's time to be done. 3 colors per tile plus black. Okay. 16 by 16. Yeah, it that definitely looks cool. Like that looks like a screenshot. I would want to jump into that game and see what it's like, for sure. It's attractive, it's bright, it's happy. Makes me think of childhood. Alright, I think this is good for a base coat. So tomorrow I'll come in and start doing a bunch of fun different color variations on it. It'll be fun. It'll be good times. So come back tomorrow. I mean, you don't have to simulate the look of a NES game. That's just, I didn't know if that was specifically your goal or if you just want to get kind of a retro look. Like, there's a lot of indie games that they just want the feel, right? They don't want to technically be exactly like it. Like Shovel Knight is super close to simulating the NES, but they definitely bent a lot of the rules just to, you know, they kept the feel, but they also made it very pretty. So it really depends on the art direction for your project, and maybe the design goals too. Like, what exactly are you trying to evoke? I think there's a very limited number of people who like legitimately care if you match exactly, you know, the 8-bit look. Made one decision same way Yacht Club Games did about Shovel Knight. I'll try to simulate the look in this game, but not necessarily something that would run on it. I know I have another project, my own, where I do my own pixel art. It's just what this guy asked of me, to make it as NES as possible. Oh, okay, gotcha. Phoenix says, I want to try pixel art, just to have a better understanding of how it's done. It is really challenging. The times I've sat down and tried to do it, it's like, it's definitely something where you want to practice, which seems weird because it's so simple and there seems to be so many fewer choices than normal painting, but the choices matter so much. Like moving a pixel up or down one pixel length, you know, makes it seem like a mustache or mouth or an eye, or you can't tell, you know. And then when you're trying to animate them and you want, oh, it's super challenging. keep seeing the spots I missed. I want to be out here all night, you guys. Okay, here's examples of your other work. Cute. Ooh, that's beautiful. Love that forest. In the early 90s, there's a program called Pixel Paint. You could use a maximum of 256 colors in your art. Yeah, I remember that one. And then the upgrade to that was called D-Paint, and let you animate the colors of your pixel art. That's actually the first program I was using when I got my first job in. It was my first like real full-time gig in the industry, and we were making a Diablo clone, but using the Lord of the Rings license. And then, of course, the place got shut down before we launched it, but we were using D-Paint for that. Big White Shogun says, I have an example of what Josh is saying about 1 pixel difference. Renate says, I'm happy with you being up all night. Thanks. Appreciate that. Phoenix Art says, love the colors in that last shot. Yeah, it's really, really moody. Shogun says, I spent half of the last day moving pixels around for the main character to make him smirk and look confident, not look angry. Yeah, that's doing subtle expressions. Wow. That can drive you mad. Okay. I'm just gonna calling it. I'm sure I still missed some spots, and I'm just gonna be okay with that. Alright, just gonna be okay. So I'll sign off for now. I'll most likely stream again tomorrow because I'm gonna be working on this anyway, so join me then. Shogun says, thank you for the kind words, helped me a lot. Oh yeah, well, you know, when you make legitimately good stuff, it's really easy to say good things about it, so. Alrighty, catch all you guys most likely tomorrow. Bye!